It's shielding itself. Ira called, knocking another arrow. We need to break through its defenses. Rin stepped forward, its crystalline form glowing brightly. Its core is its anchor to this realm. If we sever its connection, it will destabilize. Easier said than done, Kael shouted, narrowly dodging another swipe from the creature. Breaking the shield, Zayn focused, the energy of the Nexus surging through him. He raised his hands, and a burst of light erupted from his palms, striking the creature's shield. The impact sent cracks spidering across the barrier, but it quickly reformed. It's repairing itself too fast, Zayn said, his voice strained. Rin moved to his side, its voice calm. The fractures in the ground, they're feeding the shield. If we disrupt the flow of energy, the shield will collapse. Ira nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the glowing fissures. I see them. Let's take them out. Kael grinned, sprinting toward the nearest fissure. Finally, something to stab. As Kael slashed at the glowing cracks, Ira fired arrows at others, each strike sending a surge of energy back toward the creature. The shield flickered and weakened with each disruption, its glow dimming. Zayn seized the opportunity, channeling the full force of the Nexus into a concentrated beam of light. The beam struck the core directly, and the shield shattered with a deafening crack. The creature roared, its form destabilizing as cracks spread across its body. You will regret this, it growled, its voice laced with fury. The final strike with the shield gone, the creature's movements grew more erratic, its attacks wild and desperate. It unleashed a barrage of energy shards, each one searing through the air with deadly precision. Ira moved swiftly, her arrows striking the creature's exposed joints and slowing its movements. Kael now, she shouted. Kael darted forward, his dagger aimed at the core. The creature swiped at him, but he rolled beneath its arm, his blade striking true. The core pulsed violently, its light flickering as the creature let out a deafening roar. Zayn focused the Nexus's energy once more, channeling it into a massive surge of light and shadow. The beam struck the core, and the creature's form shattered, its remnants dissolving into streams of light that were absorbed into the fractured ground. The air grew still, and the fissures began to close, the corruption fading as the realm stabilized. The aftermath, Kael dropped to the ground, breathing heavily. Well, that was fun. Let's not do it again. Ira lowered her bow, her sharp eyes scanning the now stable landscape. The realm is safe for now. But that creature, it wasn't acting alone. Rin stepped forward, its crystalline form glowing faintly. The fragment was sentient, connected to something greater. The rift's forces are growing stronger, more deliberate. Zayn nodded, the weight of their words settling over him. This isn't over. The rift's power is still out there, and whoever's behind it won't stop until they've taken everything. Kael pushed himself to his feet, his grin faint but determined. Then we don't stop either. Whatever's next, we're ready. Ira smirked, adjusting her bow. As long as you don't charge headfirst into every fight, we might survive this. Rin's voice was steady. The multiverse is vast, and its challenges endless. But together, we are stronger. Zayn looked at his companions, a sense of purpose igniting in his chest. The multiverse's protectors had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Let's keep moving, Zayn said, his voice firm. There's more work to do. Together. The group turned toward the horizon, the faint pull of the Nexus guiding them to their next challenge. The multiverse awaited, and they were ready to face it together. Chapter 32. The Architects of Chaos, the victory over the corrupted fragment, brought a brief moment of calm, but Zayn, Kael, Rin, and Ira knew the multiverse's true threat still lurked in the shadows. The group pressed onward, guided by the faint pull of the Nexus and their shared resolve to confront the forces behind the rift. As they walked through the now stable landscape, Rin's crystalline form pulsed faintly, its voice cutting through the silence. The creature we faced was not the source of the rift's corruption. It was a pawn. Kael frowned, spinning his dagger idly. A pawn for who? Every time we fight one of these things, it feels like they're just stalling. Ira adjusted her bow, her sharp gaze scanning the horizon. If they're stalling, it means they're preparing for something. Whatever's behind this isn't just trying to destabilize the multiverse. They're planning something bigger. Zayn's chest tightened as he thought back to the Nexus's warnings. The threads of reality were fragile, and the forces behind the rift seemed intent on tearing them apart. The Keeper mentioned ancient beings, ones older than the Nexus itself. If they're controlling the rift, then we need to find them. Rin stopped, its crystalline form glowing brighter. There is a place where answers may lie, the Astral Archive. It exists beyond the known realms, a repository of knowledge collected across the multiverse. If the architects of chaos exist, their records will be there. Kael raised an eyebrow. Astral Archive? Sounds like a fancy library. Ira smirked faintly. Libraries hold more power than most weapons. Kael grinned. I'll take your word for it. The path to the archive Rin led them to a shimmering portal that pulsed with silver and violet light. The air around it hummed with energy, and Zayn felt the pull of the Nexus intensify as they approached. This portal leads to the Astral Archive, Rin explained. It is a place of great knowledge, but its guardians will not welcome us easily. They are bound to protect the secrets within. Zayn nodded, his resolve firm. If we're going to stop the rift, we need those answers. Let's go. One by one, the group stepped through the portal, emerging into a realm unlike anything they had seen before. The sky was a swirling expanse of stars and galaxies, stretching endlessly in every direction. Towering structures of glowing crystal floated in the void, connected by streams of light that pulsed rhythmically. Kael let out a low whistle, his gaze sweeping across the breathtaking expanse. Okay, I'll admit, it's a bit fancier than I expected. Ira stepped forward, her expression wary. Stay sharp. A place like this won't let us just walk in. The guardians of the archive, as they approached the largest crystal tower, a pair of glowing figures appeared before them. Their forms humanoid, but composed entirely of swirling light. Their voices echoed in unison, resonating with the energy of the realm. Travelers, you stand at the threshold of the Astral Archive. State your purpose. Zayn stepped forward, the energy of the Nexus sparking faintly around him. We're here to stop the rift. We need to understand who's behind it and how to stop them. The Guardian studied him for a long moment before replying. The Archive's knowledge is sacred, its secrets protected. To enter, you must prove your intentions are pure and your resolve unwavering. Kael raised an eyebrow. And how exactly do we do that? The Guardians raised their hands, and the air around them shimmered. The stars and galaxies in the sky began to swirl, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with energy. Face the trial of reflection, the Guardian said. Only those who truly understand their purpose may enter. The trial of reflection, the ground beneath them dissolved, and the group found themselves standing in a void of shifting light. Each of them was separated, alone in their own space, with only the pulsing energy of the trial surrounding them. Zayn felt the energy of the Nexus flare within him as a voice echoed in his mind. Guardian, why do you fight? What price are you willing to pay to protect the multiverse? Images appeared before him, Kael, Darien, the villagers they had saved, and the worlds they had fought to protect. But alongside them were visions of destruction, of realms falling into chaos and countless lives lost. I fight because someone has to, Zayn said, his voice steady. I've seen what happens when no one stands up against the chaos. I'll protect the multiverse, no matter the cost. The light around him brightened, and the voice grew softer. Your resolve is strong, but your burden is great. Do not forget the ones who stand beside you. Kael, meanwhile, faced his own reflection. A younger version of himself appeared, a smirk on his face and a dagger in his hand. You've always been good at running, the reflection said, its voice sharp. But now you're stuck fighting battles that aren't even yours. Why? Kael clenched his fists, his grin fading. Because it's not just about me anymore. Zayn, Ira, Rin, they're counting on me. The multiverse is counting on us. And I'm not running from that. The reflection nodded, a faint smile crossing its face. Then don't let them down. Ira stood in silence as the energy around her coalesced into a figure cloaked in shadows. Its voice was cold and calculating. You've spent your life protecting the verdant veil, but this fight is bigger than your home. Are you ready to sacrifice everything for it? Ira drew her bow, her eyes narrowing. The veil taught me that the multiverse is connected. If one realm falls, they all fall. I'll do whatever it takes to protect them. The shadowy figure faded, leaving behind a faint glow. Then you are stronger than you know. Access granted the trial of reflection ended, and the group reappeared together in front of the Archive's guardians. The glowing figures studied them before stepping aside. You have proven your resolve, the guardian said. The Archive's knowledge is yours to seek. Use it wisely. The crystal doors of the Archive opened, revealing a vast chamber filled with floating scrolls, glowing tomes, and streams of energy that pulse like living veins. The air was thick with the weight of ancient knowledge, and Zayn felt the Nexus's energy resonate with the Archives. This is it, Zayn said, stepping inside. We'll find the answers here. Kael grinned, though his eyes were serious. Let's hope we're ready for whatever those answers are. As the group ventured deeper into the astral archive, the light of the Nexus guided them toward the truth, the architects of chaos, and the ultimate plan behind the Rift's creation. Chapter 33. Secrets of the Astral Archive. The Astral Archive was a marvel of the multiverse, its crystalline halls seemingly endless and filled with glowing orbs, floating scrolls, and shimmering veins of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Each artifact contained fragments of knowledge, histories of long-lost worlds, records of multiversal events, and secrets that spanned the breadth of existence. Zayn, Kael, Ira, and Rin walked cautiously through the expansive chamber. The energy of the Nexus hummed faintly within Zayn, guiding him toward a cluster of orbs that hovered above a platform made of translucent crystal. This place is incredible, Ira said, her voice tinged with awe. It's like the history of the multiverse is written in these walls. Kael spun his dagger idly, his gaze darting around the room. Yeah, it's pretty, but I'm guessing the answers we're looking for aren't going to just fall into our laps. Rin stepped forward, its crystalline form glowing faintly. The Archive holds knowledge, but finding the truth requires focus. The Nexus's energy will guide us. Zayn nodded, stepping toward the glowing platform. As he approached, the orbs began to pulse in unison, their light intensifying until they projected a swirling image into the air above. The architects of chaos, the projection, depicted a swirling void, its edges rippling with chaotic energy. From the void emerged towering figures, beings of shadow and light, their forms shifting constantly as if they were made of pure energy. Their voices echoed faintly, resonating with a deep, ancient power. We are the architects, one of the figures said, its voice low and resonant. Builders of worlds, shapers of reality, and masters of the multiverse's threads. Zayn clenched his fists, the hum of the Nexus intensifying. These are the ones behind the rift. The projection shifted, showing the architects weaving threads of light into complex patterns, forming entire realms and realities. But as the image unfolded, one of the figures grew larger, its light darkening as it severed the threads. One of the architects grew discontent, the projection explained. It saw the multiverse as flawed, fragmented. It sought to unify all realms into one perfect existence, regardless of the cost. Kael frowned, his grip tightening on his dagger. Let me guess, this rogue architect is the one causing all the chaos? The projection shifted again, showing the rogue architect tearing a massive rift into the fabric of the multiverse. From the rift emerged waves of corruption, twisting and consuming the realms it touched. The rogue architect's vision was rejected by its kin, but it wields immense power. It seeks to reclaim the multiverse, piece by piece, through the rift. Ira stepped forward, her expression grim. If it's powerful enough to tear open the rift, how do we stop it? The projection flickered, revealing an image of the nexus at the center of the multiverse. The threads of light converged there, glowing brighter as they resisted the corruption. The nexus is the key, the projection said. Its energy binds the multiverse, keeping the thread stable. But if the rogue architect seizes it, the balance will collapse, and all realms will fall under its control. A plan of action, the projection faded, and the room grew quiet, save for the faint hum of the archive's energy. Zayn turned to his companions, his chest tight with resolve. The rogue architect is after the nexus. If it takes control, it can do whatever it wants with the multiverse. Rin stepped forward, its voice steady. The nexus's energy resists the corruption, but it cannot hold indefinitely. We must find the rogue architect and confront it before it reaches the core. Kael raised an eyebrow. Confront it? You saw the size of that thing. How do we even stand a chance? Zayn looked at his brother, the energy of the nexus sparking faintly around him. The nexus chose me for a reason. Its power is tied to the multiverse, and it's stronger than anything the rogue architect can throw at us. But we'll need to weaken it first, disrupt its connection to the rift. Ira adjusted her bow, her sharp gaze unwavering. The rift is its anchor. If we can sever its ties, it won't have the power to challenge the nexus. Kael smirked, though there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. All right then, let's go poke a hole in the architect's plans. The rogue architect's influence as the group left the platform. The archive's light grew dimmer, and the air grew heavy with an unfamiliar energy. The walls seemed to ripple, and faint whispers echoed through the chamber. This place feels wrong, Ira said, her voice low, like something's watching us. Rin's form pulsed faintly. The archive's defenses are weakening. The rogue architect's influence is reaching even here. Zayn clenched his fists, the hum of the nexus growing louder. We need to move. If the architect can reach the archive, it's stronger than we thought. As they hurried through the halls, the whispers grew louder, forming dissonant voices that seemed to speak directly to them. You cannot stop the inevitable, the voices said, their tone both calm and mocking. The multiverse will be unified. You delay the future only by prolonging your suffering. Kael rolled his eyes, his grip tightening on his dagger. Great. Now it's taunting us. The whispers faded as the group stepped into another chamber, this one dominated by a massive, glowing portal. The energy of the nexus pulsed in Zayn's chest, pulling him toward it. This is it, Zayn said, his voice steady. The architect's influence is strongest here. Rin nodded, its crystalline form glowing brightly. Beyond this portal lies the rift's true core and the architect's domain. Ira adjusted her bow, her expression calm but determined. If we're going to face it, we do it together. Kael grinned, though there was a flicker of nervousness in his eyes. Just another day saving the multiverse, right? Zayn smiled faintly, his resolve unshaken. Let's finish this. Together, the group stepped through the portal, ready to face the rogue architect and protect the multiverse from its ultimate collapse. Chapter 34. Into the rift's core, the portal's light enveloped Zayn, Kael, Ira, and Rin, pulling them into a swirling vortex of chaos. Time and space twisted around them, fragments of broken worlds and shattered stars spinning in the void. The air hummed with immense energy, a mix of the Nexus's stabilizing presence and the raw power of the rift. When they emerged, the landscape before them was unlike anything they had seen, a desolate expanse of jagged, blackened ground that pulsed with veins of crimson light. In the distance, the rift's core loomed, a massive swirling vortex of energy that crackled with lightning and shadow. Floating above it was the towering figure of the rogue architect, its form both magnificent and terrifying. The architect was immense, its body composed of shifting light and shadow that seemed to defy definition. Its core pulsed with a deep, ominous glow, and its voice resonated through the air, a mix of calm and fury. "You have come far, but your journey ends here," the architect said, its tone laced with authority. "The multiverse's fragmentation is its weakness. I will bring unity, and you cannot stop me." Zayn stepped forward, the energy of the Nexus flaring around him. "You're not bringing unity. You're destroying everything to make it fit your vision. That's not balance, that's control." The architect's form shifted, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You do not understand the burden of creation. The Nexus clings to an outdated order. I will forge a new one, free from weakness and chaos." Kael drew his dagger, his grin sharp despite the tension in the air. "Sounds like you've got a serious god complex. Let's see how you handle a little humility." The architect's wrathy architect raised a massive hand, and the ground beneath the group trembled violently. Crystalline shards erupted from the earth, each one glowing with the architect's energy. The air crackled as tendrils of shadow lashed out, aiming to engulf the group. "Spread out," Zayn shouted, raising his hands as the Nexus's energy surged. A barrier of light formed around him, deflecting the tendrils and giving the others time to react. Ira nocked an arrow, her aim precise as she fired at the architect's core. The arrow struck, but the architect's form absorbed the impact, rippling as if mocking her efforts. "Your resistance is futile," the architect said, its voice cold. "You cannot fight the inevitable." Kael darted toward one of the glowing shards, slashing at its base with his dagger. The shard shattered, sending a pulse of energy rippling through the air. "We'll see about that," he muttered, moving to the next shard. Rin focused its energy, sending beams of light toward the tendrils that writhed in the air. "The shards are amplifying its power. We must destroy them to weaken it." Zayn nodded, his gaze locked on the architect. "I'll keep it distracted. Kael, Ira, take out the shards." Shattering the shards, Kael and Ira moved with precision, weaving through the chaos as they targeted the glowing shards. Each strike sent a shockwave through the battlefield, causing the architect's form to flicker. Ira fired a volley of arrows, each one striking a shard and causing it to explode in bursts of light. "That's 3 down," she called, moving to the next. Kael grinned, his movements quick as he slashed at another shard. "Make it 4. The architect roared, its voice shaking the ground. "You dare defy my vision? I will erase you from existence." It unleashed a wave of energy that surged toward Kael and Ira, but Zayn intercepted it, the Nexus's power flaring as he absorbed the attack. "Keep going," he shouted, the strain evident in his voice. Facing the core with the shards destroyed, the architect's form began to destabilize, its edges flickering as its power waned. It turned its attention fully to Zayn, its voice filled with rage. "You, Nexus Guardian, are the final obstacle. Surrender, and I will grant you a place in my new order." Zayn clenched his fists, the energy of the Nexus sparking around him. "I'm not here to join you. I'm here to stop you." The architect raised its arms, and the rift's core pulsed violently. The energy of the multiverse swirled around it, forming a massive beam of power that surged toward Zayn. Kael shouted, "Zayn, move!" But Zayn stood firm, channeling the full force of the Nexus. The beam struck him, and for a moment, the battlefield was bathed in blinding light. The Nexus unleashed when the light faded. Zayn stood unharmed, the energy of the Nexus radiating from him in waves. The architect's form faltered, its core dimming as it recoiled. Zayn's voice was calm but resolute. "You're done, architect. The Nexus doesn't need your vision. The multiverse thrives on its differences, its chaos and balance working together." The Nexus's energy flared, and Zayn raised his hands, unleashing a surge of light and shadow that struck the architect's core. The robe being let out a deafening roar as cracks spread across its form. "This is not the end," the architect growled, its voice fading as its form shattered into fragments of light. The rift's core pulsed one final time before collapsing, its chaotic energy dissipating into the void. The aftermath, the battlefield grew quiet, the ground stabilizing as the crimson light faded. The rift's presence was gone, and the air felt lighter, freer. Kael approached Zayn, his grin wide despite his exhaustion. "You did it, little brother. You actually did it." Ira lowered her bow, her sharp gaze softening. "The architect's influence is gone. The multiverse is safe for now." Rin stepped forward, its crystalline form glowing faintly. The nexus remains stable, and the threads of reality are intact. But the rogue architect was only one threat. Others may yet arise. Zayn nodded, his resolve firm. "Then we'll be ready. The multiverse will always need protectors." Kael clapped him on the back, his grin returning. "And we got the best team for the job." As the group stood together, the light of the nexus pulsed faintly in Zayn's chest. The battle was over, but their journey was far from complete. The multiverse still held mysteries, challenges, and countless lives to protect. "Let's get moving," Zayn said, turning toward the horizon. "There's more work to do." Together, they stepped into the light, ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 35. The threads rewoven the light of the nexus pulsed steadily as Zayn, Kael, Ira, and Rin stood at the edge of the battlefield where the rogue architect had fallen. The once chaotic rift had collapsed, leaving behind a tranquil expanse of shimmering starlight that stretched infinitely in every direction. The multiverse felt calm for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. Kael sheathed his dagger, wiping sweat from his brow. "So, does this mean we won? The whole multiverse is safe now. No more giant light monsters trying to squash us." Ira smirked faintly, lowering her bow. "I wouldn't be so sure. Stabilizing the nexus doesn't mean the threats to the multiverse are gone." Rin's crystalline form glowed softly, its voice calm. "Ira is correct. The rogue architect was but one force among many. The threads of reality remain fragile, and new fractures may yet emerge." Zayn stood silently, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the remnants of the rift's energy had dissipated. The hum of the nexus resonated in his chest, a constant reminder of his responsibility. "We bought the multiverse time," he said finally. "But the work isn't over." Kael groaned, throwing up his hands. "Of course it isn't. Heaven forbid we get a vacation." Zayn managed a faint smile. "You'd get bored in a week." Kael chuckled. "You're not wrong." A quiet return, the group returned to the astral archive, the portal sealing behind them with a quiet hum. The archive's once flickering light had stabilized, its vast halls now glowing with a serene energy. The guardians of the archive reappeared, their forms composed of swirling light. "You have done well, travelers," one of the guardians said. "The multiverse owes you a debt it cannot repay." Kael raised an eyebrow. "Not even a medal? A trophy? Maybe a nice dinner?" The guardian's form shimmered faintly, as though amused. "The Nexus's light is its reward. But your journey is far from over." Ira stepped forward, her expression serious. "What do you mean?" The guardians raised their hands, and the air around them rippled. Images appeared, fractured realms, darkened skies, and faint, pulsing lights that indicated lingering threads of corruption. "The rogue architect's influence was vast," the guardian explained. "While its direct threat has been eliminated, remnants of its power persist across the multiverse. These echoes will grow if left unchecked." Rin nodded, its crystalline form glowing faintly. "The architect's plan may have failed, but its chaos has left scars that must be healed." Kael sighed, crossing his arms. "So, we're not done saving worlds yet." Zayn placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, the Nexus's energy sparking faintly around him. "We'll take it one step at a time." Parting paths, the group gathered near the archive's entrance, where a new portal shimmered with the faint light of the Nexus. The threads of reality felt more stable now, but the weight of their mission still hung in the air. Ira adjusted her bow, her sharp gaze softening as she looked at Zayn. "The multiverse needs protectors like you. If you ever need help, the verdant veil will answer. Zayn nodded, his expression warm. You've been an incredible ally, Ira. Thank you for everything. Ira turned to Kael, her smirk returning. Try not to get yourself killed, Kael. The multiverse doesn't need your reckless heroics. Kael grinned. No promises. Rin stepped forward, its glowing form steady. The multiverse will always need guardians. The Nexus's light will guide you, but the threads of reality are vast. I will remain to ensure the Archive's knowledge is preserved. Zayn hesitated, the hum of the Nexus resonating in his chest. You've been with us from the start, Rin. Are you sure you won't come with us? Rin's glow dimmed slightly, its tone gentle. The Archive is a beacon for the multiverse. I must ensure its light does not falter. But we are connected, Guardian. The Nexus binds us. Zayn nodded, his voice quiet. We'll keep moving forward. A new mission as Zayn and Kael stepped through the portal. They emerged into a serene realm bathed in golden light. The sky above was clear, and the air was filled with the faint hum of the Nexus's energy. It was a stark contrast to the chaos they had faced, and for a moment, Zayn felt a flicker of peace. Kael let out a low whistle, scanning the tranquil landscape. Well, this is new. No giant monsters, no collapsing worlds. I could get used to this. Zayn chuckled softly. Don't get too comfortable. There's always another challenge ahead. Kael turned to his brother, his grin fading slightly. You know, you've changed, Zayn. Back when this all started, you were just a scared kid trying to survive. Now, you're leading the charge to save the multiverse. Zayn looked at Kael, his expression thoughtful. I had to change. We all did. But I wouldn't be here without you. Without Darian, Ira, Rin. I couldn't have done this alone. Kael placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, his grin returning. Well, you've got me for the long haul. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into next. A glimmer of darkness as they continued through the serene realm. Zayn felt a faint ripple in the Nexus's energy. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it sent a chill through him. Kael noticed his brother's hesitation. What is it? Zayn frowned, his gaze distant. Something isn't right. The Nexus feels stable, but there's a disturbance. It's faint, but it's there. Kael's grin faded, his hand resting on the hilt of his dagger. Another architect? Zayn shook his head. I don't think so. This feels different, like something is watching us. Before Kael could respond, a shadow flickered across the horizon, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. The air grew colder, and the faint hum of the Nexus grew louder. Did you see that? Kael asked, his voice tense. Zayn nodded, his jaw tightening. Whatever it was, it's not over. The light beyond the brothers pressed on, the disturbance in the Nexus's energy growing stronger with each step. The serene realm around them began to shift, its golden light dimming as faint cracks appeared in the sky. But as they reached the edge of the realm, the Nexus's energy flared brightly, and another portal appeared, a beacon of light amidst the growing shadows. Kael glanced at Zayn, his grin returning despite the tension. Looks like we've got a new destination. Zayn took a deep breath, the hum of the Nexus steadying him. We'll face it. Whatever's out there, we'll stop it together. As they stepped through the portal, the light enveloped them, and the threads of the multiverse stretched endlessly before them. The road ahead was uncertain, but their resolve was unshaken. The multiverse was vast, its challenges endless, and its protectors ready. To be continued.